Tarsi's 9 wasn't just another hostile planet. It was a black mark on every star map, circled with warnings and forgotten in silence. Few had seen it. Fewer had returned. Earth's command called it uninhabitable. The records listed tectonic, chaos, acidic storms, zero life signs. But someone or something was jamming satellites near its orbit. And in the language of military brass, that meant one thing: send a scout. Private Logan Vance didn't volunteer. No one ever did. His name just showed up on the list one morning. Orders arrived with no explanation, no briefing. Just coordinates. And a sealed file labeled Classified ISO-NLY Tarsi's 9. He read it once. The details didn't make sense. But one line stayed burned into his mind: avoid eye contact. Do not engage with reflections. If you hear your name run. 3 days later, they strapped him into a reinforced drop pod, shut the hatch, and wished him luck like he was already dead. The descent was violent. The pod screamed as it tore through thick cloud cover, slamming through turbulence like a steel coffin. Outside, lightning burst across the sky, blood-red bolts dancing over churning black storm clouds. The atmosphere groaned. His instruments glitched and sparked. For a moment, all power died. Then, with a violent crash, the pod struck down. Vance groaned, body aching, blood ringing in his ears. When the hatch hissed open, he stepped out into a world that looked like it had tried to end itself. The air wasn't breathable. His HUD screamed warnings, cycling through toxic symbols. He switched on his rebreather and took in the landscape. It was wrong. Jagged hills twisted like broken ribs under a yellow pulsing sky. The wind had a low, guttural voice, not quite sound, more like pressure in the bones. Dead trees stretched toward the clouds, not with branches, but with long, spiny spears. They looked dry from afar, but glistened up close. Vance touched one. It was wet. He pulled his hand back. Sticky. Red. The ground was littered with shattered bones. Not animal bones, not human. Just bones too long, too sharp, too symmetrical. Fossilized rib cages the size of trucks half buried in cracked soil. This place wasn't a planet. It was a graveyard. He walked. Not far. Maybe 50 meters. That's when he noticed it. The silence. No birds. No bugs. No wind through the trees. It was the kind of quiet that warned you something was listening. Then in the distance, something moved. Fast. No footsteps. No breathing. Just a blur behind the skeletal trees. Too low to the ground, too wide. He turned, weapon up, every muscle tensed. Nothing. He flicked on thermal vision. The HUD flashed static, then cleared for just a second. A shape huge, coil lurking in the cold, then gone. He muttered to himself, "Okay, that's fine. Just shadows. Just scanning, in and out." He checked the signal beacon. No uplink. The planet was jamming him. Hard. He activated the drone. It lifted off his shoulder, small, silent, and zipped forward into the trees, mapping the area. The feed was clear, then blurry, then -black. Static. Double quotes. No. He tapped the screen. The last image froze in the corner. It showed the drone. And above it, a face, pale, split down the middle like a cracked mask. No eyes. Just empty holes. Its mouth was a wound. Teeth like stone. Vance froze. His heart pounded so loud he could hear it echoing inside his helmet. Then skik-kri-yi. Sound shattered the air. Like glass being pulled apart, Vance spun around, and the trees were bleeding. Long red lines trickled from the bark. No, not bark. Skin. The trees were alive. Stiff. Waiting. Watching. Then the closest one twitched. A limb moved. It wasn't a tree. It had limbs. 6 long, pointed arms curled up like branches. A head nestled in the trunk, smooth and featureless. It stretched, bones cracking as it turned toward him. The forest began to shift. One by one, the trees peeled themselves off the earth, uncoiling like puppets on broken strings. They had been waiting. Vance backpedaled fast, rifle up, eyes scanning. The nearest one jerked forward, no warning, just motion. Vance fired. 3 rounds. The bullets hit center mass. No effect. The creature paused, tilted its head. Then it charged. He rolled sideways, scrambling over dead roots and wet bone. The thing crashed past him, hitting a boulder with a sound like a car wreck. Another dropped from the canopy above Spindly, fast, too fast for something so tall. He aimed, switched to explosive rounds, and pulled the trigger. Boom. This one screamed. High, piercing noise that went straight into the nerves. Its chest burst, spraying thick black mist that hissed when it hit the ground. The skinner collapsed, twitching. The others paused. He didn't wait. Vance ran, through bones, through mist, through whispers. He didn't know where he was going, but he knew what would happen if he stayed. Behind him, the forest screamed. He ducked under a jagged cliff, slid into a narrow ravine, and tumbled down. Into a black crevice hidden in the stone. Silence again. He waited. Nothing followed. His breathing slowed. Then, a soft light. Inside the crack was a small space. Sheltered. Dry. A cave. Reluctantly, he stepped inside. The walls glowed faintly, pulsing, like veins under skin. There was a smell burned metal and ash. Then he saw it. A small campfire. Still warm. Fresh. He took one step closer, on the ground. Beside the fire was a human skull, scorched. Beside it, a blood-soaked dog tag. Vance's hand shook as he picked it up. Same unit. Same number. Same name. His own, Private Logan Vance. He stared at it, heart stalling in his chest. Before he could think, the shadows inside the cave moved, and something laughed. Not loud. Not deep. Just soft. And familiar. And it sounded exactly like him. Vance didn't move. Couldn't? His legs locked beneath him, frozen in a crouch as the soft, ghostly laughter echoed inside the cave walls. It was his voice. Same tone, same pitch. Like someone had pressed play on a recording of his last breath. The campfire flickered again, shadows shifting like living ink. The laughter stopped. Silence fell, but it was louder than before. Vance tightened his grip on the pulse rifle. One wrong move and whatever was in here would pounce. He scanned the cavern. Every inch of it seemed unnatural. The walls curved in spirals, etched with deep grooves that didn't look carved. They looked grown. Pulsing veins of faint blue light ran through the stone like capillaries under skin. The place felt like a womb, not a cave. He stepped backward, trying not to disturb the dust. But it was already too late. A crack echoed above him. He looked up. Ceiling wasn't made of stone. It was made of limbs. Long, brittle arms with sharpened joints hung in the dark like chandeliers. They were folded and still, but twitching now, unfolding. stretching out like something waking from a long, patient sleep. The Skinner was not alone. Vance dove to the side just as a clawed appendage stabbed down like a spear, piercing the ground. Where he just stood, another slammed beside it, tearing up rock like wet paper. He fired blindly, filling the cavern with blue muzzle flashes. The recoil kicked hard, but the rounds lit the dark brief bursts, revealing dozens of creatures. Crawling down the walls, all of them pretending to be part of the cave, all of them hungry. One lunged. Vance ducked, rolled, and jammed the barrel of his rifle into the thing's midsection. He fired at point blank. The Skinner's chest exploded in a mist of acid and steam. The blast scorched the walls. The other creatures screeched, recoiling. He didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward the cave mouth, leaping over the fire, over the skull, his skull, and back into the poisonous air outside. Wind tore at his suit. Dust swirled around him like smoke. The landscape had changed. Where there were bones before, now there were pits. Deep, spiraling craters, each one covered with webs of fine, black threads nests. Burrows. They'd been sleeping. Now they were awake. A shadow streaked past overhead. He turned just in time to see a Skinner leap from a cliffside, land in the crater, and vanish underground. Then another. Then 3 more. They weren't chasing him. They were flanking. The sound returned, high-pitched clicking, like teeth chattering. Inside a machine, he activated his motion scanner. It flickered then, pulsed red dots around a dot. He ran. No tactics, no strategy. Just run. His boots hit the cracked earth hard, crunching bone and ash with every step. His breath came fast, hot inside. The helmet. The air was thinning. His oxygen reading dropped to 67%. He saw a narrow ravine ahead, maybe 20 feet deep, hidden by shadows. No choice. He jumped out. His body slammed into the slope, skidding on black moss that oozed under his weight. He rolled, bounced, then slammed into the bottom. Pain exploded in his ribs. Something was cracked, maybe broken, but he was alive. And alone. For now, he lay there for a moment, staring up at the sky. The clouds pulsed in a rhythm, like a giant dying heart. Lightning spidered across the horizon. One bolt struck far off, a burst of red light followed by a roar. That didn't sound like thunder. He needed shelter. Fast. The ravine twisted and narrowed into a corridor of stone and bone. Strange symbols were carved along the walls, not language. Warnings. Crude drawings of creatures, of bodies torn apart. Some had too many limbs. Some had no skin at all. He passed one image that made him stop cold. It showed a figure clearly human, peeling like an orange, eyes still open. Above the figure hovered a creature, half smoke, half bone, with many mouths and no face. Whatever built this place knew the Skinners. Maybe feared them. As he pressed forward, the walls grew tighter. The ceiling dropped lower. The tunnel funneled him towards something. Then he smelled it. Smoke. Fire. Another light. Another flicker. He came around a bend and froze. Another cave. Another campfire. Burning in a ring of bones. And beside it, laid out carefully, was another suit of armor. Same make. Same unit. Same damage-torn shoulder, acid-scorched chest plate. His armor. But it wasn't empty. The body inside was still breathing. Slow, shallow. He crept closer. And then the figure sat up. Same face. Same eyes. It looked at him, expression blank, and said, in his exact voice, They said I could leave once I found the real one. The doppelganger moved like a marionette, jerky, unnatural. It stood, cracked its neck, and tilted its head with a smile that didn't belong on any human face. "I'm so tired of waiting," it whispered. Vance raised his rifle. The clone didn't flinch. "I wonder," it said, "which one of us is the original?" Then it lunged. They collided like freight trains. The impact knocked the wind out of Vance. The imposter fought with his moves, same training, same reflexes, but faster, more brutal. Like it didn't care if it broke bones. Vance managed to drive his knee into the thing's side. It grunted, but didn't slow. Its hand wrapped around Vance's throat, lifting him like a doll. He grabbed his boot knife. Stabbed straight into the neck. Black ichor sprayed. The clone dropped him, gurgling, but still standing. Its skin began to bubble, melt. "I told you," it said, choking. "They don't let you go." The walls of the cave trembled. Then cracked. A huge slab of rock split open behind the firelight, poured through, blinding and unnatural. And behind that light was a structure, not built-grown, towers of bone, webs of silver nerves, giant metallic spines curled like horns. It pulsed with energy, with memory, with consciousness. And lining its walls were eyes, dozens, hundreds, some human, some not, all watching. Vance stepped back. Weapon raised, the cave clone collapsed, its body disintegrating into steam. The fire died, and the voice came again, not out loud, but inside his skull. "You came to scan, but we scanned you. Welcome home." A gust of freezing wind blew from the structure. The Skinners began to chant. And far in the distance, a new pod screamed through the sky. Another scout. Another name. Another sacrifice. Vance looked toward the broken armor, the melting face, and the black hole opening inside the earth itself, and he realized he might not be the first Vance to walk this path, but if he didn't escape now, he'd be the next one waiting by that fire. Vance ran, didn't think, didn't breathe. His boots pounded the cracked ground as he fled the glowing crevice, the ruined fire, and the echo of that voice still writhing inside his skull like worms and wet earth. "We scanned you. Welcome home." Whatever that thing was, the voice, the structure, the clone, it wasn't finished with him. And now it knew everything. His name, his thoughts, his fear. The cliffs loomed ahead, towering like broken tombstones, casting jagged shadows in the blood-colored light. Vance scrambled up the slope, fingers gripping slippery black stone, sweat burning in his eyes. The chanting below faded into the wind, but the silence that replaced it was worse. That meant they were hunting. Behind him, the ground shifted. He didn't turn around. Couldn't afford to. But the sound of shifting earth like sand through metal pipes grew louder. Then he saw a dot at the edge of the horizon. Stabbing into the sky like a needle through the clouds was a spire. It shimmered, 1,000 feet tall, surrounded by black tendrils crawling across the land like roots. The closer he got, the more wrong it felt. Like it wasn't really there. Like it was flickering between now and something older. Something alien. His HUD glitched. Every step closer, his vitals spiked. Oxygen dropped. Heart rate surged. Memory. Logs rewrote themselves. He saw flashes of things he hadn't done. Conversations he never had. It was like the spire was recording him in real time and bleeding in others. A message popped up on his visor. SCOUT 29. Error detected. Memory. Corruption. Identity mismatch. He blinked. Scout-29? That wasn't him. He was Scout 07, right? He shook it off and kept moving. As he neared the spire, he saw the surface smooth, metallic, but alive. It pulsed with light. Faces drifted across it. Human faces, some twisted in pain. Others blank. A few smiling. He reached the base and pressed a gloved hand to it. The surface was cold at first, then blistering. And then it opened. The wall folded in like breathing lungs. A circular tunnel stretched inward, lit by veins of dull orange light. Vance stepped inside. The walls closed behind him. No turning back. The inside of the spire was. Worse. It was like walking through a brain. Organic walls pulsed around him. Nerves twitched. Liquid dripped from the ceiling into grates that hissed as they absorbed it. Whispers echoed, not words. Just memories, laughter, screams, a mother calling her son's name, his mother's voice. He gritted his teeth and pushed forward. At the center of the corridor, he found an opening, a room, circular, tall, every inch of it covered in strands of data flesh living cables. Pumping with glowing fluid. In the center floated a heart, not biological, metallic, shaped like a human. Brain, but stitched with teeth, wires, and thousands of tiny, blinking eyes. The memory core. And beneath it, a human, wired to the walls, suspended in midair by coils embedded in his skin. The man's eyes were open. Still alive, still. Processing. Vance stepped closer. And then he saw the uniform. Same unit. Same name. Tag. Same face. It wasn't just a clone. It was him. The man looked at him barely, eyes fluttering, face pale. A whisper left his lips. Please, end it. Vance's head spun. The core pulsed louder, brighter, like it was feeding off his confusion, feeding off his soul. He stumbled backward, and his boot hit something. He looked down. A pile of helmets, tags, armor. All marked with one name, Logan Vance. Dozens, maybe hundreds, some old, some new, some melted into the floor like wax. That's when it hit him. He wasn't the first scout. He wasn't the original. He was just the next. Copy. Tested. Scanned. Used. Rewritten. This was a loop, a death spiral of endless echoes. They send a scout. He gets scanned, cloned, erased. The planet rewrites him. Starts again. A perfect trap. A living archive of humanity's curiosity and its failure to leave. His HU deemed. Memory deterioration, 87%. Warning. Integrity breach, identity collapse imminent. Vance dropped to one knee. Head pounding. Nose bleeding. He heard a voice behind him, his own voice. You're almost ready, brother. Another version of him stepped out of the wall. Clean, calm, smiling. I remember when I was you, it said. So scared, so loud. So? Desperate to be real. Vance raised his rifle. The doppelganger didn't flinch. You can't shoot what's already part of you. And he was right. The HUD glitched. Weapon disabled. Then the spire around them groaned. The core blinked all its eyes and said, transfer complete. Vance collapsed. When he woke up, he was standing outside the spire. Clean. No wounds. Suit repaired. Sunlight. Not red. Blue. A perfect sky. birdsong in the distance. His HUD was green, oxygen 100%. Location, Earth Sector 7. He blinked. What? A dropship hovered above. Then a voice crackled through comms. Private Logan Vance, Scout of Tarses 9. Mission complete. Welcome home. He fell to his knees, cried, but then he saw it, reflected in the visor of his helmet, not his own face, but 3 faces, all staring back. Each a version of him. One smiled, one wept, one just watched. Motionless. The ship landed. The ramp lowered. And a man stepped out. Same unit. Same uniform. Same exact face. He said only one thing: it's time to wake up. Again. Logan Vance stood still on the landing pad, staring into his own eyes. The version of him that had just stepped off the dropship looked cleaner, sharper, like it had never tasted dust or blood or the raw fear that still shook in Vance's bones. The wind was silent. Too silent. No sound from the engines. No sound from the forest around them. Not even the buzzing of insects. It hit him all at once. This wasn't Earth. It wasn't any place real. It was a simulation, a memory loop, another layer. Another lie. The other Vance tilted his head. That same calm, eerie smile never fading. You made it to the final layer, he said. Not many do. Vance backed up a step. This isn't real, he said. No, the other replied. But neither are you. Not anymore. The words echoed like bullets. The jungle shimmered. Trees began to glitch, flickering like low-res holograms. The grass folded in on itself. The sky fractured into hexagonal tiles, each displaying a different version of reality. A barren moon, a flooded swamp, a ruined city, a battlefield. Every one of them had him in it. Each reality showed a version of Vance dying, surviving, killing, surrendering. The other Vance gestured to the false sky. This planet doesn't kill us, he said softly. It copies us, it learns, and when it's finished, it sends us back. But I never went back, Vance whispered. I was trapped. The clone smiled wider. No, he said, we never let you go back. And suddenly, Vance remembered. Not just flashes. All of it. Every loop. Every version of himself that broke, screamed, fought, or submitted. Dozens, hundreds. All of them downloaded, buried deep in his mind like corpses under glass. The voices, the flickering faces, the fire. The broken helmet, the one that had always been his. He collapsed to one knee, dry heaving, brain pounding with information. Memories slammed into him like freight trains. The Skinners, the cave, the spire, the false Earth. But underneath it all, a heartbeat, a signal. It was still broadcasting. And suddenly he realized the spire wasn't just a memory trap. It was a transmitter. Had been sending something out. Not just data, not just DNA. Something worse. Something alive. He stood, shaky, but determined. The clean clone stepped forward. You're not supposed to resist, it said. That's not how this works. Then I'm breaking the system, Vance snapped, pulling the plasma knife from his belt. The clone laughed. You already did, it said. And then its skin began to peel. Not blood, not bone. Wires. Signal threads. The clone's face split apart like a mask, revealing the true form beneath, a pulsating, data-flesh construct of living code and dying memory. This wasn't a clone. It was a living virus, built from human thought and alien intelligence. You're not a person, Vance growled. You're a program. I'm your evolution, it hissed. Then it attacked. They clashed in the middle of the cracked landing pad. Blade against claws. Rage against reason. The virus was fast, inhumanly fast, but Vance had something it didn't. Will, he fought dirty, headbutted, kicked, used the terrain. He stabbed the knife into the thing's core, twisted, then ripped it free in a spray of flickering light. Thing screamed a sound like static and sobbing and staggered back. Vance reached for the emergency beacon on its belt that activated. The signal flared, and the world around them began to collapse. The false earth cracked apart. The trees tore down like paper. The sky exploded into digital fire, but something else happened too. Beneath the collapsing simulation was reality. He saw it through the gaps. The real surface of the DeathWorld. Ash plains. Spire fields. Wrecked. Escape pods. A shattered sky filled with wreckage, and in the center of it all, a beacon, his original beacon, still sending, still blinking. 3 years. And above it hovered the real spire, larger than mountains, covered in the skulls of every species it had consumed, including humans. Vance stood at the edge of the simulation, everything crumbling behind him. He looked down at his arm. His skin was flickering. Not real. He had been turned. Changed. He was part of it now, but he still remembered who he was, and that meant he still had a choice. From the wreckage of the simulation, he tore out a core module, a memory drive, filled with everything this world had taken. Names, faces, code. He jammed it into the beacon. Let's show them what we found, he muttered. Then he activated the overload. The beacon screamed with energy. All the stored minds, memories, data, every scan the spire had collected rushed back into space in a concentrated blast. Not just a signal. A warning. To humanity. To the universe. To anyone still watching. This world doesn't kill scouts. It turns them into weapons. He saw the sky fracture. The spire noticed. The skinners screamed from every hole in the ground, rising in swarms. But he was out of time, out of breath, out of chances. He looked up, straight into the night. And smiled. Orbit. Earth High Command. The deep space listening array flared red. An operator jerked upright. Sir, she shouted. Signal received. General Thorne turned slowly. From where? She hesitated. Tarsize 9, sir. The DeathWorld. That system's been dark for 3 years. She nodded. Double quotes. Yes, sir. Until now. The message came through in full. A direct memory core download. Thousands of logs. Hundreds of minds. And one line. Marked in red. They sent a scout to the bleakest DeathWorld, and he never returned. Thorne frowned. Then who sent this? The operator stared at the final part of the message. Vance's voice, one sentence, one final act of rebellion. Not all of me stayed. Back on Tarsize 9, the spire screamed. Fire bloomed across the surface. The stolen minds began to unravel. The system collapsed. One by one, the clone programs fell to their knees, choking, corrupted, and inside the core of the world, something ancient and vast, something that had been sleeping for centuries, woke up. But for the first time in eons, it was afraid. Epilogue. Months later, a recon fleet approached TARSIS-9. Where once there was a planet full of predators and mind-hungry ghosts, now there was nothing but glass. The surface had been scorched clean. One lone beacon still blinked. Beneath it, embedded in the stone, was a shattered helmet. On it, scratched by hand, were 3 words: "Humanity fights back." And the universe learned something new that day. You can kill a scout. You can copy his memories. You can even trap his mind. But if even one piece of him escapes, you haven't won. Because humans, we don't stop.